What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Podcast 129. My name is Hunter Waldrop, and as you can see, if you are watching on YouTube, I'm here by myself. We had a little scheduling conflict this week. I got to go out of town tomorrow, and Jake is finishing up his finals this week, and so him and Tyler decided they were going to film tomorrow. I'm not going to be available the rest of the week. We got a big week coming up, so I'm going to go ahead, give you some of my picks, give you my thoughts on rivalry weekend, and then tomorrow they are going to film, and we're going to put it all into one big video. Not sure if this is going to go at the end or at the beginning. I would imagine this is going to go at the end, and Tyler's going to make it look good. So,
All right, Pod. Jake and I were a little bit off the ball this week. We didn't get our recording done. So you can catch our picks on the social media. So go check out our Instagram and see where me and Jake's minds are at this week. Shout out to Hunter, always making sure that he gets his recording in and make sure that you guys have the content that you are desperately wanting. I am so sure of it. So shout out to that guy. Hunter, you're the man. Whenever you listen to this, sorry that me and Jake were a little bit not all together this week. So without further ado, Mr. Hunter Waldrop.
uh, without further ado, I'm just going to hop right on into it. A few quick hitters, though. I know that there were some big things that happened over the weekend for college football. First, the coaching carousel. Lane Kiffin, gone. LSU leaves Ole Miss in the dust. Alex Golesh to Auburn. John Sumrall to Florida. Will Stein to Kentucky just announced. Like, there's a lot of coaching changes going on in the world of college football right now. And then also, the day I'm filming this is December 2nd. So we just had our last regular season college football playoff poll drop. All of that stuff is going to get addressed next week after conference championship week. It's just a lot easier when all three of us are on here. You can keep the video a little bit more condensed, especially when I'm doing this by myself. Sometimes it gets repetitive, and we don't need all that. So instead of going over the rankings, I don't know, Jake and Tyler might do something on the rankings, or they might give a little tidbit on some coaching changes, but I know that some we're going to dive deeper into next week after conference championship week. It's a little bit easier to do, especially with just Army Navy being next week, and there's a bye week before the playoffs. So just a little bit easier, makes more sense to the schedule. So I wanted to go ahead and address that. And one last thing, I don't know if it's going to get brought up. I wouldn't be surprised if Jake brings it up. But our boy, my co-host, lifelong friend, Jake Stinchcomb got engaged this past Saturday, and I had the luxury of being there up in Athens to celebrate him and his fiancee Braylon. And I just want to let them know I'm so proud of them. I love them both so much, and I'm glad that I was able to be a part. And I'm looking forward to throwing a wedding for you guys and being a part and celebrating y'all. And that was a really good time. And just congrats to you two. All right, time to bring on the slides. So, like I said, I'm going to go over some rivalry week stuff, some things that stuck out to me. Then we're going to preview some conference championship games. And then I'm going to give you my best bets of the week and our parlay, our triple option parlay. Well, at least my part of it, 1/3 of it. And then we will move on. And I'm probably going to be at the end of this. So I'll let Jake and Tyler do the rest of the work here. All right. Starting off on Friday night last week, Black Friday, we kind of had some bummer games, I would say. Not bummers. I mean, we had Ole Miss, Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. We had clean old-fashioned hate, Georgia Tech. But as far as the games go, Ole Miss took control, never looked back. Georgia Tech was an absolute stink fest. I'm still convinced that the Script Riders got that game mixed up with the Iowa-Nebraska game because Iowa dropped 40, and I think it was all on offense. Wild. Regardless, we're here to talk about the Lone Star Showdown, Texas A&M, Texas. Man, Arch Manning looked great. And if you go back and look at Arch's numbers this year, man, like the expectation was so high. And it's hard for anybody to reach that expectation, truthfully. And you go back and look at this guy's numbers and look how much help he had from his offensive line. He didn't have a lot. And the run game was not getting going. So there was a lot of stuff put on him, man. I think he's really come around, and he has gotten better every single week. And I think he's going to be a threat next year Obviously, the guy can move, which is awesome, with his legs, that being. And I was very impressed by the way Texas ran the ball. It looked like they're finally coming into their own. Unfortunately, it's just a little bit too little too late. They just moved up to 13th in the rankings, I believe. They're stuck behind BYU, Miami. There's no path for them to get in. And I get the Sark argument for, well, we scheduled Ohio State. If we would have scheduled FCS or Virginia Tech or whoever week one, we'd be 10-2 and it wouldn't be a discussion. But you did schedule Ohio State. And shout out to Texas for doing that. I hope this decision by the committee does not limit teams scheduling hard out of conference games. And on top of that, Sark, you shouldn't have lost to Florida. Now I get it. Florida at the beginning of the year, when they were clicking, they were a good team, all that. But you still went and lost to Florida. If you don't lose that game, man, y'all are right there in it. And I hate it for them because I do think they are a top 12 team, at least top 15 teams. Like they definitely could be coming into their own and having an opportunity to play in the playoff if they wouldn't have lost that game, which is unfortunate. But this is a great way to end your season, and you get more time to develop these young guys. And I think it's a good time for Texas to go start looking in the transfer portal. Like, look, we need help on our offensive line. We're going to have to replace Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill. How are we going to do that? So, not all negative for Texas coming out as far as their playoff hopes and dreams. And they still have a bright future, man. And I think Archer's going to be really good next year. As far as Texas A&M goes, man, I was saying, I kept harping on it. I'm pretty sure I said it in the last week's episode. I was like, there's just not going to be a team that goes undefeated in the SEC. I just refuse to believe it. The conference is too compacted. This feels like big brother, little brother. And it just so happened to come to fruition, man. And Marcel Reed, just a bad month in November, turning the ball over, making questionable decisions all around the field. I'm glad he is healthy, though. I'm glad that he's healthy and that he did not get injured, because the college football playoff would not be the same without Marcel Reed in it and this lethal Texas A&M offense. But they're susceptible to the run. That's the biggest takeaway I have from Texas A&M, is that if Texas can run the ball on you, what is Oregon going to do if you have to play them? What is Ohio State going to do if you have to run into Georgia? Like, there's only a few, or if you have to run into Notre Dame again, like there's only a few teams that I can think of on the top of my head that are currently in the playoff. Like Alabama and Oklahoma are the two teams that come to my mind where it's like, well, they can't run the ball on anybody, so it doesn't matter. But they got to get that cleaned up. Good thing for Mike Elko, though. You get this week off, and you get next week off, and then it's playoff time, and you're going to be hosting a home playoff game, which is still a great year. 11-1, phenomenal. You're going to have the 5-6 seed probably. I think they came out 5th in this week's rankings, maybe 5th, or I can't remember. It might have been 7th. I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I can't remember. They're either right in front of Ole Miss or right below Ole Miss. I can't remember which one it was. I'm pretty sure it's 5th though. Regardless, they're going to host a home playoff game. This has been a great year, and I still think this team can win a national championship. They can get after the passer very efficiently, but, man, they got to fix that rush defense before I start building more confidence in them. Furthermore, I don't know how much I like them playing from behind. I've seen them do it against South Carolina, but I finally see them do it against the top half SEC team, and it looked like the pressure was just too much. But granted, it was on the road, rivalry game, whatever. Very interesting team going into the playoff. I still think they can make a run and do some damage and potentially win a national championship. So that was my takeaways from this game. Moving on to the game, Saturday morning, noon, Ohio State rolled into Ann Arbor, and they rolled Michigan. It was never close after Julian Sands' interception. Man, it looked like there for a second. I was like, oh my gosh. I was texting Jake. I was like, dude, are they going to do it again? Like, is Michigan going to do it again? They go down the field, get an explosive run off the bat, kick a field goal, get the ball right back after forcing a turnover, kick another field goal, and then it was lights out. Ohio State ran away with it, especially in that second half. And then the exclamation mark was that they had a Michigan drive on Michigan. 20 plays, run the ball down your throat, take off half the clock for the quarter, and that was it. And I know that Ryan Day really enjoyed having that drive. Man, Julian Sayin, very efficient with the football. Ever since that one turnover he had at the beginning of the game, it was like, oh, yeah, that's Julian Sayin. He's just very efficient, knows where to go with the ball, very accurate downfield. And I know it helps. He's got Jeremiah Smith, he's got Carnell Tate, and a plethora of other weapons like Max Clare. And then you have Bo Jackson running the ball in the backfield. And then you get down the goal line, you just give it to CJ Henderson. Like they got weapons all over the place. The defense with Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs and all that talent, Edric Houston in the front end. Like, they're just a really good team, guys. And it finally showed. And the thing that really was scary to me, if I'm the rest of college football, is that like, yeah, they were happy and they were celebratory, but it was like almost like it was just a business trip. It wasn't like anything special to them. Like, yeah, we just did what we were supposed to do. And usually when a team has not won a rivalry game in 4 or 5 years, it means a little bit more, but they at least did not show that on camera, on the field, post game celebrating. Ohio State, obviously, everything in front of them. I think they're the best team in the country. Definitely the odds on favorite to win the national championship. I think Julian Sayin should win the Heisman Trophy, especially if he beats Fernando Mendoza in Indiana this week. But regardless, I think he's still the better player. However, you can make arguments for Mendoza or Pavia. That's a discussion for next week as well, because there was big odds movement today on Tuesday, and me and Jake kind of freaked out because we both have Julian Sayin. We bet him towards the end of the year when he was still plus money, and now we're like, maybe Pavia's going to take it home, maybe Mendoza, who knows. As far as Michigan goes, Sherrone Moore's like not gonna necessarily lose you a game, but he's not gonna win you a game, right? Michigan, they just play so conservative. And I made this analogy earlier in the year, like, Jerome, you have keys to a Ferrari. And it's like you just keep getting in the Toyota Prius, man. Like Bryce Underwood, there's been zero development throughout the year. Like in the Oklahoma game, it was week 2, first ever road start. I was not expecting anything big, but like, dude, you could see like the potential. And then they play Central Michigan. I get it. It was Central Michigan, but still, I was like, wow, he's really improved. And like, he ran the ball well and he's making better throws. But like, since that game, man, it's like there's been no improvement, no development. And that scares me if I'm Michigan, not because of the quarterback, but because of the coaching staff. So I am very intrigued to see how Bryce Underwood starts 2026. Is he going to be the same guy where they just hand the ball off, or they only have very select few passing options for him? Not just literally with the skill they have at receiver, but also like the play design. Very, very little downfield passing. And that's where I go back to with the whole Sherrone Moore's not going to lose you a game, but he's not going to win you a game. And what I mean by that is that, there's not going to be a lot of times Michigan turns the ball over. And I know they did against Northwestern. They were -5 in the turnover battle, but they still found a way to win, right? And that's impressive. I don't care who you are and who your opponent is. With that said, in these big games, they played 3 really good teams this year. They played Oklahoma 10-2, USC 9-3, and then Ohio State 10-2. Everybody else was subpar to below average, or I guess subpar and below average. They were either on par or below average, is what I'm trying to say. And there was just nothing there. Like you knew that he was never going to be at fault. It was going to be something that happened on the field, whether it be an explosive play or a turnover. I feel like that kind of stuff's just randomized, especially baked into a point spread and all that. But he was never going to be the one to generate those explosive plays either. Like he had no problem winning games just kicking 5 field goals, winning 15 to, I'm just throwing an example out there, 15-12. He'd be like, okay, yeah, that's just Michigan football. So I'm very interested to see how they are going moving forward, because if they miss the playoff for a 3rd year in a row after winning a national championship in 2023, or was it 2024? 2023, yeah, 2023. He's going to be on the hot seat, and it's crazy because the offense looked the best when Biff Poggi was calling the plays and was the head coach. So I'm interested to see how the quarterback development is and how they go about 2026 because I think Sherrone Moore could be entering in as the season goes on the hot seat. Vandy, man, this second half was straight leather meets bottom. As you can see here, they outscored Tennessee 24-3 in the second half. Now, this is a really fun game in the first half, and then the second half just gets out of hand. Pavia goes off again, striking the Heisman pose. The Vanderbilt team, the social media team and the marketing team, I should say, has done a very good job of promoting him and marketing him to get to New York. And now he is second best odds. And there's a good chance he might even win the dang thing, which is crazy because if we have a Heisman Trophy winner whose team does not make the playoff, I don't know how much I can agree with that. But with that being said, who would have thought a 10-2 team in the SEC was not going to make the playoff? That's wild. Like, I don't know the next time Vanderbilt's going to be 10-2. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to completely fall off and go back to being the doormat. I really don't believe that, especially with Clark Lee at the helm. You got Tim Beck calling the plays. Very efficient offense. And I think the defense is only going to continue to get better. With that said, I don't know if they're going to have this good of a season anytime soon where they're right there by the playoff. And tonight they're still ranked 14th. They got jumped by Texas. So they're definitely out of it, which is kind of tragic because what a great season. What a great story. Love watching this team this year. They just signed Jared Curtis. So they are only going to continue to trend upwards. And I hate it for them because it was such a great season. Tennessee, 8-4. Woo! Close on the win total there. In the preseason, in the SEC preview, I said I was not more confident about a win total in the SEC than Tennessee going under 8.5 wins. And I really thought they were at least going 7-5 this year. And I thought it was going to be 7-5 and, maybe 8-4. But where their losses came from, I was not necessarily expecting. Like, yes, I thought Vanderbilt, they had a good chance, but I was like, it's on the road, probably not going to get them. Oklahoma, I was high on Oklahoma, but I was like, they're probably not going into Neyland and winning, right? And then they lost to Georgia. I had them losing that game. And their fourth loss was to Alabama. I did have them losing that one. However, I'm glad that ticket came home. Trust me, I needed it. Joey Aguilar, man, it's just like whenever they played the tough competition, they couldn't get it done. He was turnover susceptible. They struggled very much so on the defense side of the ball. Gave up a lot of yards, both rushing and passing. I think Josh Heupel still did a wonderful job this year. That might be a hot take, but considering their circumstances going into this season with Nico leaving right at spring, and you had players injured going into the year, and defensively that is, and just some other drama going on in the program, I think Josh Heupel did a really good job. He finished right around this win total, just as everybody who has a grasp on it in the preseason, like he did right at expectation. And I think he's a really good coach, and he's only going to continue to take this program to the next level. Whew, the Iron Bowl. So me and Jake and Tyler, we were all at Jake's engagement party. This game started at the end of his actual party, and we saw Auburn go down 17-0. We all were holding Auburn plus 7.5 tickets. I mean, needed them. We were really high. Obviously, you guys know, very big Ashton Daniels fan, friend of the program, Ashton Daniels, that is. And we were starting to get really nervous. And yeah, Ashton, there were spots he could have played better, could have made some more accurate throws. Auburn not catching passes, though, also does not help him. And then the offensive line, I felt like, was just on or off. But, man, they crawled all the way back. Two explosive plays changed this game. And the next thing you know, it's tied. 20-20. Bama finds a way, though. They always do, right? Drives right down the field. Yeah, there's some questionable calls, if you want to call them that. You call them out on either side for this just been officiating this year. Whatever. Kalen DeBoer hangs his sack out there, goes for it on that 4th and 2, and Ty Simpson fires a rope in there. And Alabama clinches spot in the SEC championship. That's a great win for them. As far as Auburn goes, great hire with Alex Golesh on Sunday. Very interested to see how many players he can retain, what he's going to do with the quarterback position. So that's obviously, selfishly, I would love to see Ashton play under Alex Golesh because I saw what Golesh could do with Byron Brown and Hendon Hooker and some of these other college quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, to name another one. Like, I've seen what Golesh can do with them, and I really hope that he gives Daniels a chance and that I think Daniels can succeed in Golesh's offense. So very interested to see how that goes. Will they be able to retain Cam Coleman? We'll see. Bama, man, everything's in front of them. We'll talk more about them later in this show. But, however, disappointing season for Auburn, obviously. Not making a bowl, firing your coach, only winning SEC plays against Arkansas. So that was rivalry week. Kind of my instant reaction, quick thoughts on some of the bigger games that happened this weekend. Moving on to the conference championship preview, one of the best weeks in all the football season. Cannot believe it's already here. Can't believe we're already in December. It's been such a great year. It's been a great year of football. And I'm excited to see how this playoff picture shapes out and where we go moving forward. So if you see me looking at my phone, it's because that's where all my notes are. I was taking notes on this stuff throughout the day, different things I've heard, different things I've watched. And we're going to start it off hot. As you know, Jake, about to be a University of Georgia grad. I grew up in the state of Georgia. Tyler grew up in the state of Georgia, played college football in the state of Kentucky. So we're SEC guys. We're going to start with the SEC championship. It's crazy because Ole Miss, first 11-win season in program history. Vanderbilt, 10 wins, most wins since 1915. Oklahoma, 10-2. You get all these different teams rising up. And some things just never change. It's Georgia, it's Alabama, and the SEC championship. And this is going to be the 11th time in the last 12 years that either Georgia or Alabama is your SEC champion, which is nuts because the only exception to that rule is the 2019 powerhouse LSU Tigers. Some things just never change here. So let's just go back. This is obviously a rematch. Bama won, 24-20, 27-24, maybe. And the opening game is at the end of September in Athens. They ended the 30-game win streak Georgia had at home. Very impressive win streak. And Kalen DeBoer just finds a way, right? He is undefeated against coaches named Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, and Steve Sarkisian. You get this guy as a dog, and he wins. So let's look at some key factors, key stats that I wrote down regarding this game last time out. Bama was 13 of 19 on third down. I believe they started 11 of 11 or 10 of 10, something like that. Just something crazy. Super, super, super efficient. And not only that, they were taking time off the clock as they were doing so. You flip to the other side. Georgia was 2 of 8 on third down. Not very good. But the two things I draw from that as well, Bama is not always going to be 13 of 19 on third downs. Just like Georgia, it's not always going to be 2 of 8 on third downs because they are both top 30 in third down conversions this year. So will there be a regression to the mean? It's obviously not a guarantee, but if it is, that goes towards Georgia. Last time out, Ty Simpson was 16 of 24 for 196 and 2 touchdowns. Hang on. In the first half, one of the most efficient outings I've seen from a quarterback, especially as a quarterback on the road in a hostile environment in the top game. What a phenomenal start. But has he regressed as this year gone along? He's definitely banged up. I'm not saying he's injured or he's hurt, but he's definitely like banged up. I don't think he's playing at his full. I don't think he's playing fully healthy, obviously, but we'll see how everything goes about and if he's looking a little bit better on the field this upcoming Saturday. But has he regressed, right? Or is that just a product of teams getting a better feel for Alabama? Obviously, this was week 4, week 5. I think it was week 5 when Georgia played Alabama. This is the same week. This is after Bama, they started off, they lost to Florida State. They beat ULM Monroe. They beat Wisconsin. Then they stroll into Georgia and beat them. As the year's gone on, I feel like the Bama offense definitely has not been as efficient throwing the ball. And we know all year the story about Alabama is they have not been able to run the ball. So is it just that he's regressed, or is it this product of teams getting a better feel on how to stop the Alabama offense? The number one key factor in this game is the Georgia pass rush. The last time these two teams played, there were 0 sacks, and there was hardly any pressure put on Ty Simpson. And as we've seen, if you want to beat Ty Simpson or make a competitive game with Ty Simpson, you have to put pressure on him. And if Georgia does the same thing that they did up front last game, I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I'll need to waste my breath on the rest of this stuff. Alabama's going to win. However, over the last few games, specifically the Texas game and the Georgia Tech game, this Georgia defense, especially on the defensive line, has stepped up. They've made quarterbacks feel uncomfortable. They've gotten home a few times. And if that comes to fruition in Atlanta this weekend, oh boy, watch out. We're going to have a ball game on our hands. As far as Alabama goes on the offensive side, I feel like they need to hit their deep ball, or they're just going to have to thread the ball with the intermediate passing game because they can't run the ball. And they have not done a very good job of hitting the deep, explosive passes down the field, getting the chunk gains, unless it's been through the intermediate pass game and then yards after the catch. So they're going to have to find a way here to either hit those deep shots, or they're just going to have to continue threading the needle against Georgia and against some of these top-tier defenses. UGA, they have to feed Zachariah Branch. Bama can give up the explosive plays on defense, and we saw this last week in the Iron Bowl. I mean, we thought Auburn was dead to rights, and boom, 2 explosive plays later, and they are right back in this game. So who do you go to when you need an explosive play for Georgia? It would have probably been Colby Young as the first choice, but now it's definitely Zachariah Branch. He's too quick. He's been Gunnar Stockton's number 1 guy. We definitely saw that last week against Georgia Tech. So they are going to have to feed Zach Branch in this game if they want to have any success offensively. Counter to that, Bama's secondary owned Georgia last game. But the defense gave up 220 plus on the ground. And if the UGA ground game is still up to that task, things are looking good for Georgia. However, are we going to get a regression to the mean here? Same thing. Obviously, this stuff is not guaranteed, not promised, but is Georgia really going to run it for 220 on Alabama again? I don't know. We'll see. Is the Bama defense really going to own the Georgia secondary? Or is the Bama secondary really going to own that back end of the field against Georgia? We'll see. The injury situation for both these teams is not good. There are 2 key players that come to the top of my mind, one from each team. First being Drew Bobo from Georgia. He's the starting center. He's probably going to be done for the rest of the year from what I'm hearing. It's not looking good at all. Got injured. He was already injured with his hand, then gets his foot injured against Georgia Tech, comes back on crutches. I highly doubt that he's going to be in it. And then on Alabama, you have Josh Cuevas. I hope I'm saying that last name right, but I'm pretty sure it's Cuevas. He is like I said, he's a tight end for Alabama. He's not only the security blanket, but man, he helps out so much in pass pro. for the Tide. And if they don't have him, and I don't think he's going to be able to play in this game, when you look back on some of those third downs, not just in this Georgia game, but throughout the year, that has been the guy Ty Simpson has gone to, man. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that affects the Alabama intermediate passing game. However, that's not even to mention the guys that are going to be on the field for both these teams on Saturday that are probably should be playing and are just so banged up, but they don't really have a choice. They got to go if they want to give their team the first round bye, which, that's pretty much what this game is, right? The winner of this game gets a first round bye. I believe Bama will jump up from 9 into the top 4 if they win this game, and they should. They should. If the number 1 seed, yes, and Alabama is the number 1 seed in the SEC, if they win the SEC championship, they should get a first round bye. I don't care who they have to jump to get there. And obviously, Georgia's already in the top 4, so if they win, they will keep that bye. Man, I think both these teams, I see one team that has gotten better throughout this year, and I've seen one team that's kind of stayed stagnant. And some argue that they've regressed. I don't know if it's necessarily regression. The team that's gotten better every week with the young, especially defense, and the young offensive line is Georgia. And the team that has regressed, or I don't think they've regressed, but I think they've been stagnant throughout the year, and it's been a product of teams figuring them out, is Alabama. Kirby Smart is 1-7 against Alabama in his career as the Georgia head coach. Some things just don't change. Georgia's never beat Alabama in Atlanta. That includes the national championship from 2017. I just don't think this is going to change. Georgia's going to have to prove it to me. I think it's too much of a mental hurdle. Kalen DeBoer is going to find a way to get this done. Give me the Tide 24-23 to beat Georgia. Moving on to the Big Ten Championship. Number 1 Ohio State Buckeyes playing the number 2 Indiana Hoosiers. I think this is pretty simple as far as playoff implications go. The winner's going to get the 1 seed, and the loser's going to get the 2 seed. Unless there's a blowout, then I could see if Georgia wins the SEC championship, them getting the 2 seed and the loser of this game getting the 3 seed. But spoiler, I don't think this game's going to be a blowout, and I think winner gets the 1 seed, loser gets the 2 seed. First thing that comes to my mind is Indiana's going to find a way on offense. Ohio State's defense is top 10 in both rush defense and pass defense. Some are arguing that this might be one of the best defenses of our lifetime, and it's hard to argue with the numbers. So Indiana has played teams such as Oregon, and I think Iowa's the other one that have top 10. Maybe it's Penn State, but I can't remember which one it is. But I know they've played at least 2 teams who are, at the time at least, were top 10 in pass defense. And obviously, they've had no problems. They were both undefeated teams here. Ohio State has not faced a top 50 rushing attack that also has a good passing attack along with it. They face Michigan, who has a top 50 rushing attack. But Michigan can't throw the football. Sorry, but they can't. Same story as last year, just a little bit better. Indiana can. Mendoza can sling the rock. They got Surratt. They got Omar Cooper Jr. And, even in the backfield, they got Roman Hemby and a few others. Like, they got athletes, and they've gotten much more physical and much better up front on the offensive line and on the defensive line. Does Indiana have an answer to Ohio State explosives? That's my question for their defense. Does Indiana have an answer for the Ohio State explosives? That's been my biggest concern whenever somebody's thrown a hypothetical out at me about, man, I think this SEC team could beat Ohio State. Okay, who's going to cover Jeremiah Smith? Well, they could double team Jeremiah Smith. Okay. So you're just going to leave Carnell Tate wide open? Well, we can double team him too. Okay, you're just going to let Max Clare run down the seam? You going to let Bo Jackson just get free out of the backfield and pick up chunk plays at 20? Oh, and then when they feel like it, they just want to hand it off to him. When he gets tired, they'll just hand it off to C.J. Henderson. And there's probably like 3 or 4 5 stars receivers who are redshirting this year, just haven't gotten their number called yet. It's very hard. So can Indiana stop the explosive play? Because I don't think it matters if Indiana does have rushing success and they hold on to the ball. And even if they don't score on drives, but they pin Ohio State deep back on special teams, all it takes is one play for Ohio State, and they're going to be there. And that's the most frustrating part. Because on top of that, once they build up a 2-possession lead, they can rely on their defense to just sit on it. And they'll drain as much clock as they feel like. I don't even know if we've seen the best Ohio State game yet. I'm taking the Buckeyes to win this game 27-20. I think they're going to cover this 4.5. I think Indiana's a good team. I think they're going to keep it close within one possession, but it also could be one of those where Ohio State's up 17-14. And it's just, like I said, they're just kind of sitting on that lead. They're not having to do too much. And Indiana tries to crawl back into it. Give me the Buckeyes to win the Big Ten championship and lock up the 1 seed. I would be lying if I were going to say that these next 3 aren't going to be quick hitters. I do have a little bit more context on this one, but the next 2 I definitely do not. Big 12 championship game. Number 11th, the 11th ranked Brigham Young Cougars are taking on the 4th ranked Texas Tech Red Raiders. The lines came down. It opened up at 13.5, down a full point to 12.5 in favor of the Red Raiders. This game's really simple to me. BYU has to stop the Texas Tech explosive plays, because if they don't, this could get out of hand real bad. My biggest remembrance of when these teams played earlier in the regular season in Lubbock was that Texas Tech marched right down the field, and then they kicked a bunch of field goals. But what was the final score, like 29-10 or something like that? I don't have it pulled up in front of me here, which is okay. I am going to pull it up real fast, though. Should not take long. But, yeah, they won 29-7. They covered this game. But my biggest thing that I remember is that they could not score touchdowns. They were kicking a whole heck of a lot of field goals. I would actually like to see how many they kicked in this game. 5. They scored 15 of their 29 points on field goals. Imagine if they would have scored 5 touchdowns. That would have been an outrageous blowout. Even if they would have scored 3 more touchdowns out of those 5. Heck, if they would have even scored 2, because it's already 29-7. That's already a 3-possession game. So that's one way to look at it as well. All they got to do is just finish drives now. But if you go back and look at some of the Texas Tech statistics from this year, that's not just a BYU game thing. They're like 80th or in the 80s in finishing drives and touchdowns. So very interesting to look at here. Another thing to look at for BYU is that they were -3 in turnovers. So if they hold on to the ball, and the other thing I have written down here, they can hold on to the ball and establish a run game. Bear Bachmeier, he's a runner. Not like a speed runner, but like just to gritty it out, get you 3 or 4 yards of carry and move on. Well, and we got to feed LJ Martin. LJ Martin's premier back. I think he could play on Sundays. I think he is that good. However, I know a lot of people know Texas Tech for explosive offense, and yes, they do have a good offense, but their defense, led by Jacob Rodriguez, is legit. So I don't know how much BYU is going to be able to establish a run game. I do think BYU is playing their best ball now, though. And I think Texas Tech's gotten better since they played BYU as well. Very interesting here. Dynamic. I don't think BYU is going to turn it over 3 times again. I faded BYU all year long. And my original read was, lay 13.5 with Texas Tech. The more I've simmered down on it, I think BYU will establish a little bit better of a run game. I think their defense is going to step up. There might be some clock management here from Kalani Sitake. Really good coaching matchup. Might I add, Kalani Sitake doing unfathomable things at BYU. Great head coach, and then even Joey McGuire at Texas Tech. I think BYU backdoor covers here. Give me the Red Raiders 31-20. Think BYU is going to be out of the playoff with their second loss to Texas Tech, and I think Tech's going to get a first round bye. American Conference Championship game. These two teams, both their head coaches are leaving. North Texas head coach Eric Morris going to Oklahoma State, and Tulane head coach John Summerall going to Florida. I think both these coaches are still locked in, though. I'm pretty sure there are agreements with their respective next universities that they can coach as far into the playoff as their team takes them. Obviously, you got an elite quarterback matchup here. Drew Mestemaker, true freshman, playing for North Texas. Then you have Drake Retzloff for Tulane. I almost said BYU, but for Tulane. Obviously, hasn't been the best throwing the ball this year, but he has done a really good job running the ball. I've probably watched way too much Tulane football this year. With that being said, though, I'm going to go with the coach who I think is more locked in on finishing the job with their program, and I do think that is Tulane, and they are playing at home. Different from all the other games that we've discussed so far. All those games are neutral site. This game is in New Orleans. It's at home, and I'm going to take Tulane here. It's a 2.5-point spread. You guys know, if you've been following along with the show, I like taking dogs that are 2.5-point underdogs. So I'm gonna roll the wave here. Elite mascot matchup. The Mean Green versus the Green Wave. Lots of green on the field. But I'm gonna roll wave here. Give me Tulane to make the playoff out of the American Conference. And finally, who gives a crap? I mean, this is just an utter disaster. And I really think that conference championship games and the qualifiers and the restrictions and the rules have to be addressed specifically by conferences like the ACC and potentially like the Big 12 for future years. Number 18, Virginia should not be playing Duke. 7-5 Duke in the conference championship. Virginia, like, they lost to NC State at the beginning of the year, but it's like not a conference game, which I still don't understand. Like, I know, I get it. Like, I understand it, but like, I still don't understand how that's an out of conference game. I understand they scheduled it as an out of conference game before the ACC schedule came out, but why would you schedule it as an out of conference game? Like, that part I don't understand. And then you're playing a team that is tied fourth or fifth, or tied second with 4 or 5 other teams that has 5 losses, and they didn't have to play a single top half team this year in the ACC and Duke. And don't get me wrong, I think Duke has a lot of young talent on that team that has a lot of potential. Darian Mensah, I think, is a very good quarterback. And I think Chandler Morris from Virginia, a good quarterback. Duke's winning this game. I hope everybody knows that. Now, this spread has gone up to 3.5, which is kind of sketch for me. It kind of makes me want to take Virginia, but it opened up at 2.5. If you're watching on YouTube, you see that on the screen there. But this has got to get changed. Like, I'm sorry, your tiebreaker just needs to go to, if we have so-and-so tied and it's Miami and a bunch of unranked teams, you just need to force Miami in there. Like, I don't know how the best way to get that done is, but, like, that just needs to be a thing because Miami should be playing for this. They are the best team in the ACC, and I get it. They lost 2 bad games, one on the road at SMU and one at home against Louisville, but they had the same 2 conference losses as Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, and Duke, and SMU. And I don't understand how a tiebreaker gets. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I understand it, but if I'm the ACC, I'm like, I would have thought, well, they all have 2 conference losses. Who's highest ranked in the college football playoff? Oh, Miami, let's go. Gives you the best chance to send the team. Because if Duke wins this game, guys, one of 2 scenarios is going to happen. Either JMU and Tulane are going to get into the college football playoff, or they're going to screw JMU out. Because I think lock between Tulane, North Texas, whoever wins that game is a lock to get in. They're going to be the 11 seed. unless Virginia wins. If Virginia wins this game, it's a moot point. But if Duke wins this game, it's going to be the winner of the American, and then it's either going to be JMU. We're going to have 2 G5 teams in, which is going to be just blasphemy. You're leaving teams like Texas and Vanderbilt and BYU out of the playoff. Or I could see the committee really being like, are we really just going to leave the ACC out altogether? And they'll finally have Miami jump Notre Dame. But we'll see. I say all that to say I got Duke 31-27 for the chaos. All right. My lockbox. A win record so far. Man, Jake's really came along. Proud of him. He was struggling there for a little bit in the middle of the year. And Tyler killing it as always. All right. I'm going to take Ohio State minus 4.5. I think they win by at least a touchdown. Could be by more. I got James Madison, team total over 34.5. I think they're going for style points here. They are trying to get into the playoff regardless of if Duke wins or not. I think they're going to try and get in over a team like Tulane or North Texas, I should say, rather. So I think they're going to score as many points as they possibly can. I'm going to take JMU to score more than 34.5 points, and they are playing Troy in Virginia this weekend at home. I'm taking Bear Bachmeier under 34.5 rushing yards. I saw how inefficient he was against Texas Tech earlier this year. I think they're going to lean more on a healthier LJ Martin, and furthermore, sack yardage counts against you in these games. And I think towards the end of this game, I think BYU is going to be throwing it a little bit more, and you don't want to be throwing it against this Texas Tech pass rush. So I'm going to take Bear Bachmeier under 34.5 rush yards. I'm going to take Tulane plus 2.5. I just going to roll the wave, man. I was trying to find other spots I really liked in this. I really like the first three. These last two kind of flip a coin on. I don't even know if I'll be taking them, to be quite frank with you, but I do like Tulane to win the game, so I'll take them plus 2.5. And finally, I'm taking Georgia-Bama under 48. This is always a one-possession game. Always is. And I think clock control is going to be a big thing here. Both teams going to try and control the clock, and you're going to do it 2 different ways, right? I think Georgia's actually going to run the football, whereas Bama's going to be finding those extensions of the run and hitting some of those intermediate passes or those short passes, and just clock control, man. And it's going to be a few time for these teams to settle in for field goals. No play of the week yet, at least not on my end. You'll see one probably before this. And then my triple option pick is Zachariah Branch, 50-plus receiving yards. I talked about it earlier. I think Georgia's going to have to force feed him the ball if they want to hit explosives against Bama. So I'm taking Zach Branch, 50-plus. All right. I think Jake and Tyler are going to do the outro, but just in case they don't. Thank you for listening. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe button. Last I heard Tyler say, there's about 40 to 50% of people who watch our videos, but they don't hit subscribe. So please hit subscribe. Please hit a like. Like, it actually does a lot for us. So I'd greatly appreciate that. If you watch us on YouTube, we appreciate that. And if you listen on Apple or Spotify, thank you for doing that as well. And please leave a review for us. Outside of that, per usual, don't forget, Jesus won the battle. There are things bigger than football out there. God first. God bless.